Okay, I'm going to give a brief history of Hollywood. This is an interesting story, and the reason why it's so important is because entertainment is such an important part of controlling the pyramid. And also, it reminds us that the focus is not on the creative side or the product side, it's on the power, the ownership. And so think about Hollywood back in the 30s and so on, when really it was controlled by a few studios who also owned the theaters. So they really had a monopoly on entertainment. And at the time, we were involved in wars and the Red Scare, and we really, really wanted America to be bonded together with a common way of thinking, a common lifestyle. So if you think about some of the movies back then, they were all men in ties, and the obedient wives and the children with their nice, neat clothes. And that went on for a long time, and most of the actors were on contract to the studios. So it was very, very easy to control and bond America together as we were launched into the American century. And then what happened was the Supreme Court broke up that system. And at first, the studios didn't really worry about it because there weren't any small studios to take over. However, in the late 60s, a movie came along which changed everything. Easy Rider, with Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper. They had formulaic entertainment, and now they were worried. There was an independent movie which made a big amount of money and made a big stink. Suddenly the studios were worried because they didn't think an independent studio could have impact, but that movie had a tremendous impact and was so different from what Hollywood had been creating. It was so real. It was so worried that all of a sudden all these independent studios were going to come along and take their revenue. So they gave carte blanche to these young movie people. The Star Wars, The Godfather, Jaws, the blockbuster was born. So suddenly there was a lot more variety. But it didn't take long for them to rein back in control, and they started getting back with bubblegum movies, dancing, and trying to create that mass market again, really focused on selling music and a whole genre of entertainment and clothes. This will always happen. It's like the black hole, we call it, is that big global corporations will always consolidate and suck in smaller companies. So we had a cycle of up and down and up and down. So if you look at the concentration of power, gradually dropped till about the 70s to late 70s. And then what was interesting is it started wobbling around. HBO and VHS came out in the early 80s. VHS, through pornography, generated a lot of sales and really fueled that industry. And suddenly, you can make money from a small, low-budget film. You can always get it on HBO or VHS, and suddenly the diversity increased. Independent studios came up, and they got gobbled up. Consolidation went back up. Then HBO and Showtime started producing their own edgy material, and diversity increased, and micro markets started going around the different genres of comedy and alternative lifestyles, and consolidation went back down. But what's happening now is that a lot of conglomerates own a lot of these little independent studios. So it's really all part of the same company, but there's so many micro markets appearing now on the internet. What's happening is they're starting to lose control. Even though we're owned by conglomerates, these divisions of the conglomerates ultimately compete against each other. So the internet appears to be decentralizing power, which is very, very dangerous because we create a lot of different markets who think independently. It's very much harder to control them. And so we're starting to lose control of that cohesion that really allows our pyramid to exist. And so it's a bit of a risk that we're really concerned about here. We've never been in this situation before. We're on geometric change is happening right now with internet and internet advertising in particular. And so the question is, what kind of strategy can you create to combat this problem here? And that is excessive amounts of disinformation and confusion and noise. The idea is if you allow people easy access, they're going to start creating so much junk that there's not going to be any one group that's going to have any power. We're going to disperse power around so much. And that's natural. And so all we need to do is retune the system. Enough people want to create content on the internet. Let them go ahead and create the content. We're going to make money off of it. And they're not going to get a consolidated power. Hollywood is still going to create the best stuff. And only rarely is somebody going to come out of the noise, and then we're going to gobble them up.